Welcome again to Fix It to Grow It, the business podcast about optimizing your processes and the value of your people. My name is Dave Kislick, and I messed up. I try to be the first person to acknowledge when I make a mistake, and in this case, it pertains to this very episode. Those of you who watch on YouTube and Spotify will know that I love interacting visually with my guests and audience through big hand gestures, facial expressions, and even aggressive nodding. So I'm a little disappointed that while recording this episode, I wasn't able to capture my video feed correctly. Chalk it up to being a new podcaster or over-exuberance to get started without a checklist, or just simple absent-mindedness. Whatever the case, mistakes will happen. How you react to that is the important thing. First of all, thank you to my guest for being willing to have this episode aired, even with the lack of my video on it. Mistakes don't need to be the cause of you hitting the reset button. So we were able to salvage this. Understanding the difference between what something is when something is good enough, or is really good even if it doesn't go the way you wanted it to. You don't have to just start from scratch every time. Maybe we'll do a video on that, on how making mistakes leads to learning from them, or how you address mistakes in the moment and move past them. But with that out of the way, the content of today's interview was so important that we didn't want to scrap the whole episode just because of this. So, my guest, Jessica Jacobs, is a managing partner of Three Keys Consulting, a leader in organizational transformation, change management, and executive coaching. Her expertise lies in orchestrating strategic shifts that align seamlessly with the unique visions and goals of her clients, and is adept at cultivating collaborative partnerships that drive meaningful change. Jessica is also a personal friend of mine, and I love getting to talk with her on whether it be work topics or local community activities, or even totally unsolicited and ridiculous cat facts. But today, we get to really deep dive into what change management means and how we react to it both physiologically and psychologically. Like how change is disruptive, even if it's change that we want. Or how we can move from our reptilian brain to our prefrontal cortex. And how to communicate change so that it can be received and actually understood. And also how shared vulnerability improves change management. There's so much in this episode, so really, please pay close attention. There is a wealth of knowledge for executives, for managers, for leaders, for anyone trying to influence change, whether within their organization or outside in the world. So I hope you find it as stimulating as I did. It was really thought-provoking. I learned quite a lot myself, and great conversation. So, as always, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, so you get notified about new episodes when they're posted, and I'll see you again after the interview. Welcome, Jessica. Thank you for being here to come to Fix It to Grow It. I have to say for the viewers now, we do have a history. We have been friends for some time. We're in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We run in a couple of the same social circles, so there is a connection there. But I want everyone else to know you in the way that I know you, as the exciting, fun, and very smart person that I want to have on this podcast. So if you could start by giving us a little bit of an introduction. Who are you?
Sure. I am a change and executive coach professional. I have been working in this field for nearly 2 decades. And it's one of those things where, do you ever hear that saying that you're cursed when you know what your passion is? That's what it feels like it is for me sometimes. Like I've tried to go into other fields and try other things beyond change and transformation. And I somehow always seem to be coming back to it. I love the space. I love working with people and helping them not just get through change, but really find ways to thrive through it. And that's what I get to do every day now. So it's just been a really wonderful journey.
I love it. How did you get started on this journey? Because I know you've held a couple of different roles in the past,
Yeah.
and this is a more recent thing, correct? This new consulting agency.
Yes. So I've been primarily in house doing living the dream in corporate America, working at Fortune 50 companies, doing change and transformation. And I met my now partner at our last place that we were working together, and we really clicked. We became fast friends. We got to work on some really big, really high profile transformations taking place. And we saw not only do we like each other as people, but we really are successful when we do change together. And not only are we successful, but we found that the people that we work with who are trying to get to a change are really successful also. So we've been talking about this for years. When I say years, I mean probably about like 5, 6 years. We've been
Wow.
talking that one day we would do this. And one day it just felt right. And so, we started talking about this at the beginning of 2023. And after the first quarter of 23, we felt like we did all the things that we have done for our clients, we did for ourselves. We spent the time talking about who we are, who we want to be, what is our vision, our mission, our values, what is our strategy to go forward. And it's hard work, but we really felt like we needed and we owed it to ourselves and our future clients to really hone in on these things before we continued. And so that's what we did. And once we felt like we really had it down, we left.
Okay. So, what made now the right time, other than feeling the moment was right, other than, going through all of this stuff and knowing that you had your ducks in a row? Why did now seem like the time to strike out when I know there's a huge consulting industry already? There's
Mhm.
already a lot of change management out there. Why did it feel like now would work?
We felt like we had something special and different to bring. And we don't come in like some other consultancies do. We are very big on partnership and co-creation, co-collaboration. And our goal is to work ourselves out of jobs. We don't want to stick around. We don't want to be the crutch for leaders. So we work hard to make sure that when we're working with groups and with teams and leaders, that really we're upskilling them along the way so that they don't feel like they have to continue to work with us. They may choose to because they want to, or there's a new project that's coming down their path, but we really work hard to make sure that that's the case. As we've been working internally there, we've had our fair share of consultants that we've partnered with, and some are better than others. And what we really found is that there's not a market out there for people to get what they need and get out and let them kind of fish a little bit. So we felt that this was it was one of those things you can't stop thinking about. There's this book that my dear friend gave to me when my son was born called What Do You Do with an Idea? I don't know if you've ever heard about it.
I have
Um,
not, no.
I read this to him so much, and I think about it all the time. It's all about this kid who has this little idea, and it's kind of like an egg. And when he tried a lot to push it away, and when he talked to people about this idea, this egg, people would poo poo on it and tell him it wasn't the right time, or his egg, his dream was ugly, and he put it away. But the idea wouldn't leave, and it kept being there, and he felt like he couldn't just let it sit there, kind of tapping him on the shoulder. He felt like he had to do something, and so he started to nurture his egg. He sat with it, he talked to it, he warmed it up, he did all these things you're supposed to do to nurture these ideas or these eggs. And one day it hatched, and it became this beautiful, colorful, bright, amazing creature. And it's just always been there in the back of my head for the past 9 years of when an idea comes, you gotta just, you owe it to yourself and to the world sometimes to see what comes from it. And so it just was one of those things that we felt like we had to do and get out there.
Wonderful. Well, of course, I wish you all the luck in this endeavor, and as it continues and grows.
Thanks,
I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah.
But let's pivot now to the focus of that egg, the change management stuff. How did you, I mean, you've been doing it for a while now,
Yeah.
and even for the past 5 years working with your now partner.
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to change management specifically?
When I first got out of college, I got a job and I was trying to institute just a couple of small changes, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand why we couldn't make these small tweaks. This was something that was as simple as printing double-sided, which I feel like makes me sound super old, but just printing something double-sided and how much paper that could save, how much ink that was saving, how much it was saving to do a whole slew of other things. And no matter how many times I would talk to people about it, the answer was no, we're not doing that. And I started off talking about it in my way of, well, this is really good for the environment, so obviously we should do this. And that wasn't going anywhere. So I'm like, well, what about the financial piece of this? We could save. And I did a full analysis. Here's how much money we could save. And it kind of piqued their interest a little more, but not enough to actually shift and change. And I was getting so frustrated by it. And I couldn't figure out why the heck couldn't we make this one small little change? So I did what any early 20s person does. I went to consult it with Mr. Google. And we sat down and we looked at what was going on. And all of a sudden, I started to see all these different things out there about this crazy world called change management. And as I was looking through it, I realized these are things that some things I do naturally, some things that I'm really intrigued by, right, with like neuroscience and it's human psychology. And I was hooked. And I knew I wanted to go further. And I knew since I graduated college, I wanted to go on to some sort of higher education beyond. So I started looking, well, are there grad schools that do change management? And sure enough, there are. So I happen to be very lucky. The organization I work for at the time covered your tuition. Mm. So I went to school full time. I worked full time, and I got it. I only applied to one program. And it was only one program I applied to because it was one that really focused heavily on adult learning theory. So it wasn't a lot of lecture, which not great for me. It was a lot of experiential learning, a lot of getting out there and trying and doing. And so I felt like if I got into the program, which only accepted, I think, 20 to 25 people a year, that it was meant to be. And if not, I'll figure something else out and we'll go from there. I got in and I went, and it's kind of just been history since then. I was able to even go beyond them printing double-sided, by the way, to us PDFing documents.
Whoa, slow down there.
Sending them out. So we were no longer sending out, we were doing a lot of work for our board of directors. So no longer are we sending out packages through FedEx that are, like 3-4 inches thick, but we're now actually just sending out a couple of PDF documents and how much money we saved. And so it was a big win for me.
That's awesome.
I got it.
That's great. Love to hear the success after the whole process as well. And so lucky that you were able to go to school supported by the organization you work for. Wonderful. I also find it very interesting that you were looking at the human psychological aspects of change. And I'm going to bring up that on your website, it mentions the human aspects of change management. Yes. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I've done a lot of talking with various people. I've heard a lot about how child psychology is actually very close to the business world in terms of how people behave and interact with each other. What is your understanding of the psychology of change management, and how do you actually apply that?
Yeah, that's a deep question.
That's what we do here.
Vigorous nouns, yes. So when it comes to change, our brains can't always handle it. And so when people say change is hard, yeah, change is hard. If you think about even a change that is like typically perceived as a happy change, you are moving in with a partner, you're getting married, you're having a child. These are all changes that, on face value are really exciting, happy times. There are also times when the life that you knew is very much shifting into something brand new. So change disrupts our equilibrium, and we're no longer on steady ground and we're feeling a little wobbly. And that can happen over a long-term change, like the ones we've just described. It could also happen when you're driving to work and you come across a detour and you have to go somewhere new and you're already running late. Your brain goes through a process before it gets to your prefrontal cortex, where you actually have the ability to speak, have language, understand your emotions. You're in your reptilian part of your brain at the beginning of change. So you can't even articulate what's going on. You just know that your body and your brain don't like it. And it takes time for you to get to a place of this is okay. So, one of the things that we like to talk about when we're talking to people about why change is so hard and why communicating during times of change is so hard is, I don't even know if you know this, Dave. Dave, did you know that when you're going through a big change, your reading level of an incredibly intelligent person, goes down to that of a fourth grader?
No, I did not know that.
Look at that. Goes down to a fourth grade level of reading. So you're hearing about a change coming to you at work. You get an email that's 5-6 paragraphs detailing what's going on. You can't understand that. You can't wrap your head around it. You might read that 5-10 times and still feel like, I don't know. I just know I don't like it.
Okay, I got to cut in there. That is fascinating.
Yep.
All right, let's put this in an operational form then. In those cases, I am now the recipient of that email with the explanation of change. How do you maximize my ability to understand, which is very reduced in that moment? How do you write that email in the right way? How do you present that information in the right way in order to get through my suddenly fourth grade mind?
Yeah. You don't send an email.
Okay. What do?
You have conversations. You talk about it, right? Sometimes what happens is you have the senior most person come and talk to everybody and say, hey, we're doing this. Well, why are we doing it? What's that going to look like for me? Does this actually impact me? Those are questions that people are running through people's head. They're hearing it. They know something is changing. We're using simple language, right? We're moving away from the business jargon, no talking about synergies and and other business jargon. We're really being very clear, very simple language. Then you're going to have a conversation with your manager, where your manager will hopefully, because there's been a lot of prep work on the back end before this announcement came out, understanding what's going on more. You can ask detailed questions where your manager will hopefully be able to answer them. And not always. You might have a question that totally throws them for a loop. And what we coach our leaders are in those moments it's okay to say, I don't know. Let me get back to you. That was a great question.
I'm so glad you said that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this point is so important that I want to stress it.
Yeah.
I have been through so many sessions with various people who are afraid of appearing wrong, who are afraid of appearing weak or stupid just by saying, I don't know that. So I'm really happy you brought that up. Please continue. I just wanted everyone to know how important that is.
It is. It's really important. And that I don't know is sometimes the simplest form of vulnerability. And that vulnerability makes such an impact in a time when the person is speaking to you is feeling incredibly vulnerable and incredibly raw. So you not having an answer doesn't make you a less than boss, a less than leader. It makes you a more than. You don't have to have everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You're a human being just like they are. And they may really want the answer. But if you make up the answer, not going to end well for you or them. If you skirt the question and you ignore it, not going to go well. So call a spade a spade. I don't know. Let me get back to you. That's a great question.
I love that answer as well. Let me get back to you, because you're also promising follow-up.
Yes.
You're promising action on behalf of the person that needs some information or needs your help and guidance. And this applies to so much more than just change management. As a quick aside, I did the same thing when I was working in sales. I had a customer that would ask a question and I would say, you know what, I don't know that, but let's go find out. And let's go figure out what the best answer is so that we know what we need to know to move forward.
And how much more human did that make you?
Of course.
With the people you were talking to, right? Like sometimes it just feels good to know that somebody else doesn't have all the answers.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. This is my excitement of these podcasts, are being able to express, share, and react to ideas that really matter. So thank you for getting me going.
I feel like you're all tingly.
I love it. I love it. So this is the kind of thing that can happen when you take a human approach to any aspect of business.
Right.
And I mean, that's why I'm doing this now, to show a more human side of things. That's why you have it on your website as the human aspect of change management. It makes sense. And I love that you take that as a focus.
Yeah.
But I want to pivot using that to more of your methodology. So if I'm a new client of yours, if I'm someone who really needs your help or recognizes that you can help me, how do you interact with me to make me understand how change management should work?
That's a great question. And we have a process and methodology that we have developed to help people understand change and what needs to happen for change to occur. And there's a couple of key points that I think are really important for folks to understand. One is, we know that change will not occur unless you can connect your people to the company's future and the company's strategy. So how do I fit into this strategy? How do I fit into the future? How does this change fit into the strategy? And what is that doing for our future? And without answering those questions and being able to help people, change is not going to happen. Like that's number one, needs to be the true across any sort of change that takes place, especially when you're taking a human-centered approach to change, which is what we do. The other is, we believe deeply that change has not been successful within the organizations. I'm sure you've seen the statistics out there before, right? 70% failed to hit their intended ROI or outcomes.
I've lived it as well.
Yes. So what we say is that it's what we believe and what we have seen with our own two eyes is that it comes down to a commitment issue. It's not anything else. People need to feel like they can own the change. Not that they're going to comply to it, right? Like when things don't work, it's because we're talking about compliance. When you switch to a new system in an organization and it's supposed to make things go so much quicker and you're going to get better data and better results and be able to make better, smarter decisions. And the leader goes and walks around the floor and people are still in Excel. That's because it was a compliance change, not a commitment to change.
Interesting.
So what we know is when we get people to commit to change, the changes are vastly more successful. We mitigate the risk that comes along with change, and you actually get to see some real ROI from them.
And I got to bring it back to the psychology part. What is the change acceptance in the brain? How do you get from lizard brain reactiveness to acceptance, and not just acceptance, but enactment?
Yeah. So we do it, excuse me, we do it through a series of different methods. One is around, of course, communication is always important and talking is really important. But what we have found is really that when we can get leaders and teams together, when we can get them to co-create a strategy for change, and we can get the team to execute on the change and the leaders to move away the roadblocks, to actively and visibly model the change, suddenly things start to shift. The teams are talking to their peers. They're excited that they get to be there and talk about it. When people hear about change, they don't want to hear about it from their boss's boss's boss. Sometimes they want to hear from their boss's boss. And they want to hear about it from their peers and their direct supervisor. Those are the people who they're going to trust more than anybody. So those are the people who we have helping go out and execute on change. And then we create different types of activities for people to do to get them through the phases of change and to get them to a place of commitment. So we're starting to slowly wet their palates. Then we're getting them to understand it a little bit more. Then we might do some interesting activities, or if it's a competitive group, maybe we'll do some gamification. We'll get their hands dirty. Let me try this out and see what it's like. Did I hate it? It wasn't as bad as I thought. Did I love it? Maybe not, but I can see what it is. I can see the benefits of going forward with this. And you just need those little sparks. We need a little spark, a glimmer. Something is changing within them that we can then go and continue to push. And we can continue to get them moving into the right direction. Hey, kitty.
I'm giving up trying to keep this one out of the podcast. She's just so happy to be here. But please go on.
So yeah, that's really, we take, depending on the group of people that we're working with, we have different levers and tools that we pull out. We work within the organization's culture to make sure that we're doing things that feel right to them. Mm-hmm. We pride ourselves on meeting folks where they're at. There are some organizations we work with that are really into doing some state-of-the-art new things. And there's some other ones who want to just focus on what we can do right now to alleviate the pain. And we will happily do either. You don't have to be pushing the needle every time you're going through a change. It just needs to be things that you're keeping your people in mind and you're helping them get through a process that's uncomfortable.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
As part of the process, I really, first of all, like the connection of who you trust in the organization as who you're going to be most receptive about hearing about change from. Mm-hmm. Do you also do other inclusion methods, such as, this is where we're going, we'd love your feedback and thoughts about how that should look? Do you do anything like that as well?
Absolutely. Throughout when we're doing these things, especially because we don't want to create activities or events that are in a vacuum because we think they're fun. Mm-hmm. We love fun. That doesn't mean that other people will. So when we come up with the plan of things to do to help people along, we're doing it with feedback, real-time feedback from folks in the organization. And within that, we're also learning about what their feelings of change are and what their feelings are of this specific change. And we're using that information to help them. So sometimes this is a really cool product that we're bringing in. I also could see that if we connected it to this program, that would really take us to a new level. We love that stuff. We want that. We will eat that up day and night. Those are the things, those are the connections where you're getting people to commitment, number one. Number two, you don't want to take away somebody's special sauce. Like, they're seeing a connection. Let's explore it. That doesn't mean that every time somebody says something, we can act on it. But when we are able to, we will. And when we aren't able to, the leaders are talking about why we can't. Okay. People are sharing, and we need to have a full layer of transparency for people to actually understand why or why not things are going on.
Makes sense to me. It's one of those things that anytime, and I've enacted many new programs and many new structural changes within companies, and the inclusion aspect has been one of my most successful methods as well of getting buy-in, making people feel like they've actually contributed to the change rather than just they are reacting to the change. So I love that you do that as well. I have so many more questions to ask you, but we don't have time for the full discussion that I want to have. So we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit and move to the Fix It 15. And this, for viewers who are not used to the podcast yet, this is where we might discuss a problem or an idea or some kind of thought experiment that my guest is having and see if we can't help them achieve what they want out of an interaction like this. So, Jessica, tell me, what's on your mind?
We have been having a lot of conversations recently around AI. And our clients have been talking to us about how they walk the line of letting AI into the organization and not scaring employees. And we have our own way of that we've been talking about it with folks. We've been really talking about, and reminding people there have been a lot of technological advances that have been taking place in even just the past, like 20, 40 years. And with each of those, there have been this same concern, right? Like if you think about when we switched from like those giant ledgers of manually writing things down to a program like Excel, or when the fax machine came into play, all of these technological advancements scared people into thinking they were losing their job. And most of them didn't. Their jobs shifted. And that's what we talk about. But I'm curious if this is something that's coming up also in your world and how you're all talking about it with your clients.
So definitely something that comes up everywhere. And the way that I approach any new technology or any new idea is, I think what we've been talking about already when it comes to change management is reacting with a positivity outlook first and foremost. If something doesn't work, okay, it doesn't work. You figure out the next thing.
Right.
But if something could work, then it's okay to get excited about.
Right.
It's okay to say, this could be really good. It's when you close off your mindset that you actually negate the possibility of something working out. So 2 examples of this. One is I have spoken with a number of teachers and read about the way AI is being brought into the schools and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And there are 2 main camps, just like how you were outlining. There's the group that think this is going to create a problem, either for their jobs or for the work or for the integrity of the classroom. And then there are others who are looking at it as, this is a new tool. This is a new way we could incorporate this. So already there's a positivity and a negativity to each of those sides of the coin. I, of course, land on the positivity side because even if it doesn't work for all of your lessons, if you as a teacher are able to show how AI can be used well, then you're teaching those students how to actually use new tools in positive ways instead of in negative ways.
Right.
And that's a big thing that companies can take away as well. If you help your employee introduce a new idea in the way that it will be beneficial, then it prevents them from even thinking about the alternatives, which might be harmful to the organization or the person. So that's one. The other is I heard a really, really interesting interpretation about reacting to AI. If AI comes in and you learn nothing new, you don't expand your knowledge base, you don't expand your understanding of how to use it, or just create, new skills for yourself, and the AI does do your job effectively, you lose in that scenario. You may actually get pushed out down the road.
Yep.
You haven't learned anything new. You can't adapt and grow. If you do learn something new, either about AI or about something new, and can expand your knowledge base and skill set, then if AI does come in and change things, you can adapt with that change. You're still retained, you're still valuable, even if it's not in the same way that you were before.
Yep.
And that's the big key there. Ultimately, whether AI works or doesn't, for the work that you do, for the company that you are in, for the world that we live in, if you don't learn and grow with the times, then you don't do yourself any service. So it comes back to what you were talking about in changing your mental outlook of these things and whether or not you can accept change or not at the core. So I think what you're doing is right up the alley for this kind of conversation. And I hope that anybody watching who could use help adapting to these new technologies feels free to reach out to you about it, because understanding how people change with change happening around them is so important for this kind of thing. And as you said, technology changes so often, so it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So I hope that gave you some insight into how other groups, industries, or companies might look into this sort of thing. But it's really the same throughout, because it comes back to the human interaction of it.
Absolutely.
So with that all said, first of all, Jessica, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed this conversation. And what would you like to tell the folks at home about either how to get in touch with you if they have questions, or where to find you online? Let's give you a shameless plug here.
Yeah. Feel free to come check us out on LinkedIn. You can just search for 3 Keys Consulting. Myself, Jessica Jacobs. I post regularly on LinkedIn, so feel free to shout out and say hello. And they can also come visit our website, 3key3-kc.com.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much, Jessica, for your time and your insight on change management. Wish you the best of luck with 3 Keys, as it is a new endeavor. And we'll see you again real soon, I'm sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I feel so invigorated about how we can help others and ourselves work through change, which, as we know, is going to happen all the time. Thank you so much to Jessica for joining me and having this conversation. We barely scratched the surface on it. Let me know in the comments as well if you got value out of this, and maybe we'll do a part 2 together. Have a great rest of your day. Find some happiness, tackle a challenge, recognize an achievement, learn something new. And I hope you'll join us next time as we explore more ways we can add value and grow successfully. Bye for now.